It's a rare condition this day and age to read any good news on the newspaper page. And love and tradition of the grand design, some people say is even harder to find. Well, then there must be some magic clue inside these gentle walls. 'Cause all I see is a tower of dreams, real love bursting out of every scene. As days go by, we're gonna fill our house with happiness. The moon may cry, but we'll smother the blues with tenderness. As days go by, there's room for you, room for me, for gentle hearts and opportunity. As days go by, it's the bigger love of the family.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Poi N Soy. This is our post-credits segment where we dive into movies, TV, and all the good stuff that revolve around that. I'd like to thank you for joining us. My name is Nolan Tcheng, your co-host.
I am Keoni McKeague.
I am Shirai.
And I am Jalen Holsten, slightly pissed that Keoni could ever think that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was anything less than spectacular. I know it's very late.
Do you mean the
I had
old
to call
TV
out-
show, or do you mean the new movie that we
He
have?
means the new
movie, motherfucker. This guy, this fucking guy. This guy
I mean,
right
hey, Dacre
Right here.
This
Montgomery,
guy.
man. We're about to
Dick.
get into some Dacre Montgomery shit, too.
Dacre Montgomery
So,
is- yeah.
buckle in. Today we have a full plate of information that we're going to kind of go over. We're going to talk about Obi-Wan, episode 4. We're going to talk about Stranger Things, episodes 3, 4, and 5. We're going to talk about the first episode of Miss Marvel, and we're going to talk about The Boys, episodes 1, 2, and 3 of season 3.
Goodness.
So please be ready, buckle up. We're about to get in some juicy, nerdy, sweaty stuff.
Ew.
First one. Anyways, the first one we're going to get into, episode 4 of Obi-Wan. There was a bit of some, kind of off sandy planet stuff going on, which I really appreciate. We're gonna go in and see what everyone thinks. Jared, I'm gonna start with you. What did you think of Obi-Wan episode 4? Let's start with for our friends who are viewing who may not have seen episode 4. Let's start with some non-spoilery stuff, and then we'll kind of get into the juicy stuff.
It was good, but I was a little disappointed. But at the same time, it was a little hard to follow how episode 3 finished. Like, I think there was so much action and everything that episode 4 had to be a little bit more about the backstories and whatnot. So, in my opinion, like, it was hard to follow. Like I said, it was not hard to follow, like just to stay along with it, but to follow that episode is what I'm saying. More hard to follow.
I enjoyed it. I mean, like, I think Jared kind of hit it on the nail. It was a good episode, but I think we all were kind of expecting that this next episode, or maybe the one after this, would be kind of like that lull episode, especially with it kind of almost getting to the end. So, I mean, it was what it was. I'm still excited for what it's setting up. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I definitely think Obi-Wan was, I don't want to say it was a filler episode, but there was a lot of a lull in kind of what the season could have been in this 4th episode. We are past the halfway point. There was a lot of fun things that we noticed, but at the same time, I think it could have driven a little harder home before we really got to everything that's probably going to be juicy in episodes 5 and 6.
As far as non-spoilers go, I will say this is the calm before the storm. I think it was a very kind of mellow episode, right? We're catching up to where things have been. We got to, try to fill in a couple of holes here and there, further the plot a little more, get more characters involved in what's happening, that kind of thing. But like we all know, like episodes 5 and 6 are just going to be like crazy town. So absolutely cannot wait.
All right. Next, we're going to go into Stranger Things episodes 3, 4, and 5 of
I thought
Stranger
they were
Things.
great because actually I caught up, so you should be proud of me.
Let's go!
Your boy grinding over here.
Okay.
Keoni, you can smile a little bit, Keoni.
You have too much time on your hands now.
But
Damn,
nobody
that was
wants
a
to play
lot of
Warzone
stuff.
with me. No, no. I like I said, I wanted to grind it through, and it's I would say this because like what was I on like season 2 halfway through last time we talked,
Mhm.
like every
Yeah.
time I watched it, I'm sure I swear I watched like 5 or 6 episodes just because I think the series is so good that it just kept me wanting to go. And I know you guys saw it all the way through. I'm actually on episode 6 now. So, but 2, 3,
Yep.
4, and 5, I would say it's actually pretty cool. Like, because I got to see things from the outside in, from listening to you guys after 1 and 2 and seeing how dark it's become.
Bruh.
Like,
Well, first of all, I'm going to say real quick as my non-spoiler review, if you have not binged Stranger Things season 4, definitely binge it. It's a great show. I think just the way that they started off with the dark tone and then carried that through this entire thing, kept that horror thing going. Obviously, it's kind of a horror-based show anyway, but I think that this one kind of kicked it up a whole nother notch. Definitely, Netflix took their time spending that budget on this show because this season in
As they
particular, there are so
as
many
they should.
there are so many little things that I was thinking like this must have cost a lot of money. This must have cost a lot of money. Just like set design, the way they fleshed out some of these places, the amount of locations they must have had to use or studio sets they've had to use. Like there are so many things, even vehicles. I was like, oh my gosh, that Oldsmobile must have cost like $50,000 for just like that 10 seconds of being in the damn show. But yeah, so for myself, if you have not watched this show and if you are looking for something that's in the horror genre, definitely watch the show.
3, 4, and 5. As far as like a general, this is if you are a writer of some kind and you want to write, shows or films and this is how you develop plot. Okay, everything that was in episode 1 has now at this point been almost flushed out, but there's just a little bit of wiggle room to keep going for episodes 6 and 7 and beyond. Obviously, we got 2 more coming in July. So this is how you beautifully construct and kind of wrap up long narrative threads while still leaving these characters interesting and wanting you to watch more of them in the future. It's just, again, Stranger Things at its best, doing the thing. I also agree that Sadie Sink is her name. Max is, ever since she came onto the show in season 3, just an absolute delight. I don't know where Netflix
Season
has
2,
found.
actually.
Was it two or three? One of the two.
That's
It's
when
been
they
a while.
first introduced Billy and her family.
That's right. And then he ate it in season 3. That's right. Tragically in the chest. Anyway,
Shout out
Many
Baker
times.
Montgomery.
a lot actually. It's
It
very
was not
gruesome.
just one time to the chest. It was a little overkill. I'm pretty sure
It
after
felt
the
like-
first one, he was dead. That
Well, the guy had to make sure, didn't want him to come back.
he had to make sure.
He had to make sure.
It's like, I'm pretty sure you're gonna win. You don't have to.
Hey
make
man,
sure.
he dead. Like, nah, just gotta make one more stab. And no, I agree with all the points you guys kind of brought up. I think that Stranger Things has definitely upped its game from season 3 to season 4, as it should, as any good show should. They should absolutely kind of move things forward, whether it's in its horror genre, as kind of Jalen said, it's not necessarily a horror genre, but they kind of adapted that in season 3. No, I think a lot of things are kind of looking really good right now. If you have seen seasons 1 and 2, this is going to be a gem for you. The Boys,
Oh,
season
boy.
3,
Oh my God.
episodes 1, 2, and
Oh
3.
boy.
Oh,
Bro,
boy.
we're right here, the boy.
This is going to be a very,
Oh, Jesus.
intense
Yeah. Wow.
kind of dive dive, if you will, if you
Dive
guys have
in.
seen the opening.
I had to take a
sequence
shower after
of-
watching some of these episodes.
you nasty. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, episodes 1, 2, and 3 of The Boys season 3. There's a lot of good things, a lot of intense things, a lot of dark
Weird
things
things.
that kind of go on.
Unnecessary things.
Jalen, I am going to start with you, my brother. What did you think of The
Goodness.
Boys season 3, episodes 1, 2, and 3?
Good luck, my friend.
I have a very,
And you can just spoil it.
I have a very dark.
We're
sense of
spoiling
humor.
it, everyone, just so you all know. We're spoiling
Yeah,
episodes
skip
1, 2,
ahead
and 3 because if you haven't
you
seen
don't
it,
want to. Yeah, skip.
How they get to a little bit of everything, as far as like why he hates people and why he's in this hunt and who he's doing it for. I do like how they like Jay said, they're really doing a good job of building everything as the season goes along, because they're giving you information that I wish other series would give us again.
exactly.
You gotta put shots again.
Absolutely.
The interesting
back
we
to
watch
Obi-Wan.
these
Again.
shows back to back, huh? Some stuff starts to
Just
align,
saying.
huh?
I mean,
Hmm.
I'm just saying, man.
Interesting.
Must be weird seeing a show that really does the character development that as well as The
Mm.
Boys.
Mm.
Whew, boy, as I stated in
Oh,
our
boy.
group message, I had to stop after that first like 5 minutes. I had to after watching all of these Disney Plus shows, which are clearly in a different category of world. I was like, wow, I forgot what show I was watching. So it took me a minute. I had to kind of gather myself and then get back into it, because this right here, this
was
got
not,
me.
that was
Gone.
At the same time,
They're
that
gonna
could be
dig
a
on the
definite
soups.
possibility. We have not seen episode 4 yet, so we'll kind of tune in for that and see what's going on. Other than that, the next thing we are going to jump into is Miss Marvel episode 1, premiering on Disney Plus this past week.
Completely different tone of show.
Completely different tones.
We would have
So-
started
I
with-
feel like we
don't
should have
wanna-
started
we don't
there
wanna-
and then moved to
This
this.
one.
'Cause
I think it was a kind of a big warning of when you're establishing characters, less is more. I think they tried to do too much of like the modern teenage girl coming of age stuff with like the animations everywhere, and it's very like made for the ADHD crowd, but like I had trouble following narratively what was going on, because I'm like, what the fuck? Am I on an acid trip? Why is everything moving? Where's the text? I don't like what is going on. But as far as like the character of Kamala Khan, very, very, very well done adaptation. I think like if you would, it's like they just ripped it right out of the all new everything Marvel stuff that they did like 3-4 years ago. And I think the establishment of her Pakistani culture was fantastic. And kind of seeing that family dynamic, which is very juxtaposed to the things that we're used to seeing as Americans when we see these teenage coming of age movies from like a teenage girl's perspective. It's always the like, oh, well, that's Becky. She's popular and she hates me and I'm awkward, but I have this cute guy friend that I don't know if I like yet. And then he does something amazing. I'm like, oh my God, I love him. Like, you know what I mean? So we know how that dynamic plays out in American culture. So I'm interested to
Because
see
we're
like,
all those guys.
right. Jesus. I'm interested to see how like what they're gonna write narratively to describe it through that that different cultural lens, because it definitely has to be completely different from that, because now we're like, obviously her best friend is not Pakistani, or at least doesn't just appear as such. So it'd be interesting to see that dynamic. But I enjoyed it. Again, this wasn't a show that I was like, I need a Miss Marvel show, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's here. I'm gonna watch it, and I had a great time. But again, I think the biggest thing that killed it for me was like there's too much, and I want to focus on getting to know Kamala and her friends and the stuff that she wants to do in that nature as well.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Jay. Like, there was a whole lot of crap going on, and for me, it was not super easy to follow in a sense. but at the same time, like I did like how they got into the whole backstories of everybody, like who she is, the culture, and why she is the way she is. I don't really care for how they like animated everything out when she's like daydreaming, because that was just
Oh yeah.
like Jalen said, you're 100% on an acid trip when it happens. But I do, I am excited to see the episodes that are going to be upcoming.
I'm gonna say that I had kind of the opposite take of the other two guys. One, I was in the same boat as far as this was not a show where I was kind of like, oh, I hope they make this show, because I'm not in tune with the newer comic iterations, like all the newer characters or all the newer heroes. So this was one that I was kind of like, I knew her from like the Avengers game. So that was something that I that was the only thing real attachment I had to the character. But one thing I will say is I had to watch the there was like that guide to Miss Marvel for fans. It was something on Disney Plus. They had a special that dropped before the actual episode dropped. So I watched that to kind of get my legs under myself to understand what the character was and all this kind of stuff. But I will say, watching that helped me appreciate the main actress. Her name is Iman Vellani. Um, One, she is a comic book nerd to the core. They talked about
Yep.
her. I mean, she talked about it
Absolutely.
that she would get allowance and she would always go and buy the comics. So I think, and on top of that, obviously, this was her favorite superhero. So I think that in itself was made it like that much more cool that she was cast for the show. The other thing was, I think that she had such a strong connection with the character, and the fact that she basically is like, if you listen to her outside of like in outside interviews outside of the show, she actually acts and sounds a lot like her iteration of the character. So I think that it's something that we're just going to see her growing into the show and into the rest of the Marvel universe. And I gotta give her kudos, because this was her first actual credited acting gig. So for me, I think that that was something that I thought was really interesting.
Anyways, going off of Miss Marvel, yeah, I think it was a great series first episode. A lot of family elements that a lot of people can probably relate to. Obviously, I think it's tough because I think there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't know if I want to tune in for this show or series. But I think for sure that this first episode was very emotional as well as character development wise. It gave a lot to the character of who Kamala is, and I think that for the most part, it delivered. And I think that for sure, those who do tune into it will be very pleasantly surprised about how kind of connective they could probably relate to it, as well as it is a coming of age series thus far. They do have those kind of like comic book elements where it's like the random thought bubbles, quote bubbles, text bubbles in the background that they do have to pay attention to. But I think it was very telling of who the character is. And I think I'm very excited for what episode 2 is going to bring. Guys, is there any last thoughts you guys have regarding any of the topics that we kind of covered today? Jared, I'll start with you.
No, I'm just excited. Like we kind of talked about. We're watching a lot of different shows and a lot of different like feeling. It feels like different genres, and like we have some easy, nice things, and we have some dark things, and it's just I'm excited for all of it. It is a lot to keep up with, but at the same time, like if the shows weren't good, I don't think it'd be as easy to keep up with. So
That
I'm
is
excited for
absolutely true.
every
Yeah.
series that we're actually like we talk about right now. So that's where I'm at.
Obi-Wan, amazing. Go stream it now. Miss Marvel, if that's not your thing with the kind of teeny bop series, you can skip it if you feel like that's not where you're at. The Boys, definitely if you're not into that mature audience, skip that thing. But great storytelling in that show. And Stranger Things,
Absolutely.
I don't know where you've been, but get on that train, because it's an amazing show and they've only gotten
A
better with
train.
every single season.
No.
um, but on top of that, yeah, obviously with Black Adam, I'm excited no matter what. My last thing for that, they need to find themselves their version of Kevin Feige. Do that,
Oh, yeah.
get something along those lines to get you started,
Well put.
and I think the rest will just write itself. You have so many amazing writers in the world, so many amazing directors in the world. They can do it. They just have to start over, put in the work, get that first kind of starter guy, and then build off of that. That's where I'm at with them.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, first of all, there's a gold mine of money to be made with a more teenage or young adult version of Power Rangers to be made by Netflix. Why are we not doing this right now? No.
That's where we started today. That's what we're
Hey, side note, if any of you didn't know, me and Jalen love the Power Rangers. Maybe it was before or after Jared's time, but
Can-
Keoni was been a
Can
part
we
of the
dedicate
Power
an episode to that? I'd just like to. Can we
Oh,
dedicate an
absolutely.
episode to?
I'll go
down for that.
crazy.
All right.
Tyrannosaurus!
Yes. There is a guy that they should look into named Jeff Johns who has produced several things for DC. He's written several, well, not written, but he's co-wrote and also written himself some of the greatest one-offs and series for DC Comics over the last couple of years. So he knows these characters. He's gotten into producing a little bit in recent years with doing like Titans and Stargirl on HBO Max. So like he's kind of getting into that Hollywood world. So if anyone was going to do it for them, he knows how to do universes really well. Like I feel like they should really push that guy into it. Maybe he can, maybe he can't. I don't know. But all the other shows, again, I'm just, what a time to be a nerd. You know what I mean? We got so much good content flowing out the gills, and I'm excited to see where everything goes, and I can't wait for more.
Obi-Wan episode 5 is coming out next week. I'm very excited to see how this series kind of plays off into the last couple episodes. Maybe we'll kind of get some more indicators if they're going to do a season 2 or just a continuation of season 1, maybe like a part 2 season 1. Stranger Things episodes 6 and 7 are going to be covered in the next episode. Obviously, the finale episodes will be covered in July, so we'll kind of get around to all those, discuss it with everyone here. Miss Marvel episode 1, such a great episode, just as a coming of age story. Sometimes it's not your thing. That's completely fine. We have no issues with someone who doesn't feel the same way about that. But I would recommend, if you have not seen it already, go see episode 1. Episode 2 is coming out next week. It's going to be a very, very exciting show to see, not only from a comic book standpoint, but just from a real life standpoint. Whether it is, you might be a minority, it's a very good insight into other people's cultures, people's lives, upbringing. So definitely go check it out. If it's not your taste, so be it. No worries there. The Boys, that's one that if it's not your taste, don't watch any more episodes, because that's definitely something that's going to be ruffling some people's feathers. It's definitely for a mature audience. I, for one, am a big fan of The Boys just because of their storytelling as well as the content that they're putting out, because it is very exciting, very in depth. So please join us as we kind of move forward into that season. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this segment of Post Credits. We will see you next time on our next episode.